I'm going to talk about the news in a relaxing, casual way, in a relaxing, casual atmosphere at the beach, to show our contempt for the news, to show our contempt for what's going on in the world. I know everybody wants us to take everything very seriously and go down swinging and fighting for our side and our cause, really for somebody else's cause, but we don't do that here. And hope you can hear me over the roar of the beach. But here we're going to take a look at some of the headlines that were supposed to be so important to us. I hope my internet connection and my voice holds out for this show. So here we go. Let me move over to the news here. So here we have. We know that a lot of the news media was always very excited about the Trump years. Ratings soared, revenue soared, viewership soared. But I suspect that may be the case again, despite all of the disdain that the news media has for Trump, which I sort of have for Trump as well, sometimes as well. I do try to see both sides. Why some people might think he is the person who will save all of us, but here we have what we've essentially known from the very beginning of this primary season, that it's going to be a two-horse race, despite all of the other possibilities that the media tried to present to us. I got a connection. It should come through. Let's try another link. Okay. Actually, this is the article I wanted to look at anyway. So this was what we already expected. Trump's about to seal the deal with his party's nomination. We have what will happen is there will be a lot of focus from both sides. A lot of the Trump side will be focusing on that it's really a Trump versus the vice president race. Kamala Harris, she has her own problems, not really ready for prime time kind of political character. In the past few years, I mean, there were articles about how intemperate she was, how her staff can't work with her, and there's a lot of turnover. Of course, those articles have disappeared now that the election's getting a little closer, and it looks like inevitably that Kamala Harris will remain the vice presidential choice, with some thoughts that they might move her out at some point, maybe appoint her to take over an open senatorship in California as a face-saving way to move in maybe a better candidate as vice president. And of course, why it's important this time, where usually the vice presidency doesn't matter, is that Biden is not only quite elderly, but in his manner, in his comportment, he seems quite doddering, even senile in some cases. It's sometimes quite sad when you see an old person like that, much less it be the presidency. Other time that this has come into prominence was with McCain, who also made a terrible choice for his vice presidential running mate, considering McCain's age, in Sarah Palin, another person just like Kamala Harris, not really ready for prime time. I believe in McCain's case, he let a political action committee that was a lot more conservative than he was choose her for his running mate, because McCain was quite not to the very right in a lot of these positions, and so that was the price of a lot of the right-leaning groups to get on board with the McCain presidential bid. And by the same token, Biden hamstrung himself by a quota system. They said, this time we have a quota. It will be a woman who will be appointed. Not interested. There may be better qualified people of other genders, but we've decided that it must be one with this kind of genitals. You see how that can be restricting. And also in this article, I wanted to point out that they do somewhere in here they do talk about Trump's economic woes, that his fundraising is lagging, that people aren't really going to support him. You got to be careful about that, because that's what they said in 2016. Part of the Hillary screed was that we've raised hundreds of millions of dollars from all our donors, and Trump's he's got to pay out 20 or 30 million of his own pocket. He what an amateur. He doesn't know what he's doing. But it turned out it was the other way around. Trump was or whoever was running his campaign behind the scenes, they knew what they were doing. They put money. They took away states like Wisconsin that the Democrats thought they had in the bag, and all that hundreds of millions of dollars that Hillary had in her pocket. Well, maybe that gave them a false sense of security in terms of the general election, because they got surprised in several states and lost. So it looks like, as we've been talking about for many months now, that the expected election, the two candidates who are going to go up for election, what we expected is going to be the case. And two very, very unsuitable candidates. Trump and his disorganization in some of the things he says, and his comportment, an uncertain temperament, perhaps. But on the other hand, we have much the same uncertain, poor candidacy of Biden, an obviously elderly person who's backed up by a vice president who's not ready for prime time, as we've spoken about. Of course, and you see, this characterization is really not what you see in the media a lot. Each of the media is supporting one side or another, denigrating one side or another, and what I'm trying to do is step back, take a step backwards, and look at what's really going on outside of what the media is telling us to do. Got some messages coming in. Anxiety, drug death soar. I don't know if that's going to come in. See, I'm here at the beach, the wonderful beach, and the signal's going in and out. I had something to say about anxiety, drug death soaring, and I don't know, when I was a kid, I didn't know there were drugs for any way I felt about anything. I probably could have used them. Majority of Biden voters now say he's too old. You see, this is, I'm afraid that what the Biden candidacy is going to come down to is vote for me, otherwise it's Trump. That's really not a good trade-off, especially with how the voters feel about things like inflation and immigration and things like that. Got lots of much. Forgot to turn off my phone here. Sorry about that. So I'm watching how the candidates are going to formulate these messages, how it's going to turn out. And like I say, can it really all just be about Trump and nothing about Biden? Because the voters, there are issues that make one fear that people might turn to Trump as a candidate choice. even maybe moderate voters. We have inflation, we have immigration, we have the wars overseas, the big expenditures, the U.S. debt that's growing by $1 trillion. I believe every 100 days there's an article down here somewhere about that. So it's going to be a difficult. I think it's going to be a difficult situation for Biden message-wise. However, I think a lot of the Democrats just say, oh, we just say, if it's not him, it's Trump, ha ha ha. That may not be enough. Here we have hotshot professor sees $34 trillion debt. That's the U.S. government's debt. It was grown mostly in this century by George W. Bush, Obama, Trump, and now Biden. A lot of spending after the not the debt, but the U.S. deficit, the yearly deficit was balanced by none other than Bill Clinton. Okay. What else do we have here? May not be able to go click through to these links, but at least we can see what's being talked about. Now, McConnell, Nikki Haley losing fight against the American first worldview. This is this idea that should we be spending hundreds of billions of dollars for all of these foreign wars? We probably should, but there's a lot of arguments against it. You know, let some of these rich countries like Germany and Sweden fund their own militaries against Germany, and who cares about Ukraine? And certainly in the way Israel is conducting the war, which I think started out as a very just war against the hostage taking and the provocation through Iran, through Hamas to Israel to try to prevent a peace process. You know, Hamas being an organization that is against Israel itself, is a genocidal regime. However, Israel has its own political struggles internally with a government that's very right-leaning, that had been in a long battle against other parts of the government there in Israel. So Israel may, in its way, it's addressed the situation in Hamas, in Gaza. They may win the war but lose the battle of public opinion. They may strengthen Trump's isolationist case. You see, the Republicans have gone back to the traditional pre-World War II isolationist roots of the country, and that is impacting traditional American foreign policy, which is to fight a lot of wars and run things overseas. It's probably the right way, but with a $34 trillion deficit and all those other things I've said, you can see how a good case can be made to just let these countries fight it out themselves. It shouldn't be our business. Sex is binary, say majority of scientists. Now, that isn't what I've read in the media. The media's been telling me something else, and so social media. But, you know, there can be a difference between trendy progressive things, which may be positive for humankind to rise above our own biology of war and fighting, and the way we feel about certain ways to something more enlightened. But doesn't mean it's actually backed up by science. Maybe it doesn't have to be. Those sort of trendy issues about sexuality and how people should conduct themselves and how that impacts the rest of society. Usually I just say, I'm getting kind of old. My opinions may be too traditionalist for that. So I'll let the mass of society fight it out and decide what's the right way to come down on those issues. We got Bitcoin going way up. You know, that is certainly not a That's not a vote of confidence for the economy, although we know the economy has been set up, it's been gamed this year with the Fed to make sure there is no recession that might impact Biden's reelection bid. Oh boy. See if I can get this article in. Okay. Good old Daily. Mail online. It's sensational, but they can always get their pages to load. So I sure wish I lived in one of these cities. These cities in the U.S., maybe some of you people overseas have this as well. If you're sometimes all the citizens, sometimes just lower income citizens get a guaranteed payout, no questions asked from the government. It's a very new and innovative thing. After a few decades of the federal government sort of cutting back on lower income programs, you got to wonder, certainly this is a sort of a voter payout. You get the lower income people behind you and say, you know, we're gonna guarantee your lifestyle and vote for us. But still, I'd love to have a piece of that pie. And let's see what else we have here. I hope you can see me on the camera, or maybe you don't want to. I'm trying to see through the reflection here. Putin's plan to use deep fake porn to tear down West. That sounds like a clickbait I'm not going to click on. Sweden bids farewell to centuries of neutrality. You know, it's sort of sleeping under the blanket of NATO, and now when things are getting dicey, they want to come in there. They're one of the richest countries in Europe. They should fund their own way, I think. I can't get this article to come in. You know, have you ever met some people from those countries over there in Europe? Have you ever been mocked because, you know, if you're an American, you don't have free universal health care or early retirement or cradle-to-grave services like a lot of these European paradise welfare states. However, you know, it's the U.S. that has largely paid for the security of Europe, and through all of the political tricks that both of the parties, Republicans and Democrats, have played with the economy, now we've also got a $34 trillion debt. So, yeah, I'm trying not to convince myself that we should not be involved in all of these foreign wars anymore. But we really should, because the U.S. should be calling the shots. They should be the world's policemen to make sure things work out the way they should. But, you know, you can see how we're getting to a juncture here with the polarized politics, with the crazy man Trump, a senile man Biden, and a $34 trillion debt. And what's going to happen? Other countries see this very clearly as well, even if the media tries to downplay economic woes to support Biden. That's why we have more wars and the rumors of wars that are occurring all around the world, because other countries see the U.S. public not only can't really afford to pay for this, but they don't really want to. I didn't want to be too cynical with this, but I'm ending up with a super horrible article about our great ally and friend in the Middle East, Saudi Arabia. Their crucifixions, beheadings. I don't know if I can even show some of these pictures. Heads on spikes. And but they're not an evil nation like Iran. They're We've been critical of them, but they're an ally. You know, they're willing to engage secretly behind the scenes with Israel. They were almost going to normalize relations with Israel when Iran apparently didn't want that and provoked the situation in Gaza, which Israel has blundered into and caused even more trouble for themselves. So I guess this is part of maybe the Kissinger-esque idea of statecraft, where you sometimes a country doesn't have the luxury of telling bad countries that they're bad. Like, you're not good enough for us, because you do have strategic considerations. And Saudi Arabia, with its oil, the way it can manipulate the price, Biden administration simply cannot just say you're as bad as Iran and we don't want to play with you. This is a difficult thing. From the outside, from me, I can just I can tell it like it is, but you do have to understand that people are in power. They've got to make tough judgments and then stand by it. So this is before we go, I think that's about it. I'm a writer. This is my book.
Young people find their dreams and failures in Bangkok, and then go on to the furthest places in search of something the modern world can no longer give. This is the story of There Are Still Unknown Places, my new novel on sale at Asia Books and on Kindle ebook. It's a tale for a new generation, disillusioned by the promises of the world, wanting to search for their destinies in far.
So that's my book. I hope you'd read it and let me know if you like it or not. Hopefully you do. And I hope you enjoyed this show from the beach today, where we look at the news. I try to, by understanding the context of things, maybe some stories that frighten us or that are sensationalized by the media or perverted to one side or the other by the media. If we look at the context behind it, it can make us have some understanding and make sure we don't go down needlessly fighting in someone else's war, or having anxiety about certain stories that the media feeds to us. So hope you've enjoyed today's show. I will see you hopefully tomorrow, and I think we'll be at the beach again. So I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.